for the webinar up on the website as well. This webinar came about as originally a discussion amongst our working group with some concern over how the pandemic income reliefs would be affecting income-related indicators such as low income rates, core housing need. These were all noted to be paint a better picture than what people were putting on the ground. And there's concern that it'd be difficult to set policy using these indicators if the situation is, if that's not reflecting the situation on the ground after the income supports have been removed. So we spoke with Statistics Canada about this, and as usual, Statistics Canada has been very responsive in answering questions like this with us, and have put this presentation together. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Julien.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I'm really glad to be here. Even though I cannot be physically joining you guys, but with this new technology, I hope things can go smoothly. I know that this session is about 1 hour and a half. I'll try to complete my presentation around 45 to 50 minutes, or a little bit longer probably if there are questions. Then we'll have a question and answering period. Because we are doing this online presentation, when I share my screen with you guys, probably I cannot see the hands raised. I would propose, if you are okay, we can wait for the question at the end after the presentation. Then in this way, I can see the question better. But of course, if you have a really urgent question, you can interrupt me by shout out. Then I can probably hear, and then we can do that. So without further ado, I will start sharing my screen, and you can see this. Sharing screen. Well, can people see this?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. Okay, here is, we call it the impact of pandemic relief benefits on income measures. Again, my name is Xulin Zhang. I'm a senior research analyst working at Statistics Canada. And this is the, most of this presentation is based on previous work. That is the income daily release after the census. And also there is the census in brief release to analyze the impact of the pandemic relief benefit, to which I was co-authors to this product. So that's the reason I was invited to prepare this talk. And I'm really happy to do that. Hopefully this can be helpful to your work. The plan of the presentation is the following. We'll begin by talking about the overall the pandemic relief benefit data. And then we'll talk about the how and where the pandemic relief benefit fit into all these income measures and income indicators. And then we'll start to look at the impact by looking at the basic idea, the fundamental. How can we, frame this research question? How can we frame the assessment of the impact of the pandemic relief benefit? And then I will discuss the relatively simple and straightforward method for analyzing the impact of the pandemic relief benefit. And finally, I will introduce you guys a little bit more about the existing data or the data that to come soon that I think might be helpful for you guys working in the communities. And then finally, we'll have a relatively brief question and answer period. I'm not sure if I can answer all the questions, but I will do my best to the best of my knowledge to answer your question. And if I cannot answer, I'll let you guys know, and I'll give you further contact so you can look for answers from the channels that we have widely open at Statistics Canada. All right. Okay. So this actually is from the daily on Monday, November 27, 2021.
Julien,
Yes.
sorry, can I interrupt? Could you switch to presentation mode just to increase the slides down by the zoom scale? If you hit the, there you go. Yes.
All right. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to do that. Okay. In this way, I have to use, okay, page down. Okay, I'll use the button because my mouse won't work. All right. As I said, this is the one of the release about the government spending on the pandemic reliefs. And as you can see that there's a big amount of money spent from the federal government alone. For example, the Canada Emergency and Response Benefit alone cost like $74 billion. But of course, that's the period between April 1st to March 31st, 2021. So nevertheless, it's the majority of the money spent or occurred in year 2020. So, just in one word, the total government spending on pandemic relief, it's more than $200 billion. And those money, some of them went to businesses. Like if you look at the second part, the subsidies, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, Canada Emergency Rent Subsidy, and the Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance. This money went to businesses, but the rest mostly went to individuals, Canadian individuals and families. And today's presentation will focus on the benefit that went to Canadian and their families. And this include the 5 emergency and recovery benefits and the 5 top up, the one-time payment to various group of Canadians. For example, those who receive Canada Child Benefit, or those who receive Old Age Security or the GIS. So these are the one-time payment. So, and also, my talk will also include the provincial or territorial relief program, the benefit from the provincial and the territorial government. So, the focus for today is the money, the benefit that went to individual Canadians and their families, not to the business.
I can't get in. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now, to summarize, it's not only a lot of spending a lot of money. There are also a lot of individual Canadians receive the benefit. In 2021, at the time of the census in May 2021, there were 30.3 million Canadians, 15 and older. Now, among those 15 and older Canadians, there are 20.7 million received one or more of the pandemic relief benefit. So that's about 68.4%. That's two-thirds of all these adult Canadians received the benefits. And among those who received the benefits, the vast majority, 16.5 million, received benefit from the federal government only. There are 3.7 million Canadians, 15 and over, received the benefit from both the federal and the provincial or territorial government. And finally, there is 500,000 Canadians received benefit from their own provincial or territorial government. So this is a lot of money spent, and a lot of Canadians benefited from one or more of those emergency or top-up benefits. Now, here, this slide gives you the number, the percentage of people receive the different kind of benefit, as well as the median amount among those who received. Evidently, that Canada Emergency Response Benefit has the payment is the median is the highest. That's $8,000. While on the other hand, if you look at the top up part, there is the 36.1% of Canadian adult received the GST HST credit. It's not a lot of money for that benefit, but it benefited more than 1/3 of those Canadian adults 15 and over. So this gives you an idea, how much, how many, what is the proportion of Canadians receive the benefit from each of these relief programs, and what is the median amount they received. Now, where those, we are going to talk about the different income measures, right? The well-being indicators. And one question we want to keep in mind is that where did those emergency or top-up benefit, where do they fit into the Canadian income classifications? And you can see from this slide, the yellow one, it belongs to other government transfers. We know we have all the different kind of government transfers like OAS, GIS, CPP, QPP, EI benefit, the Canada Child benefit, and there is a bunch of other government transfers. And because 2020 was the first year we introduced those pandemic benefits, so it belonged to the other government transfers, which forms part of the total of the before tax income. Now, the before tax income, if you subtract those income taxes from the total income, then you get the after tax income. And that's the money, that's the income where, primarily go to your pocket. So the closest measure to well-being is after tax income. However, the pandemic benefit, it is part of the government transfers, therefore it forms part of the total income. On the other hand, we have to keep in mind that for the different pandemic relief benefit, some of them are taxable. Remember, I showed you in the previous slide that we have this on the top part, emergency recovery benefit. Those benefits are taxable. On the other hand, the top ups, they are not taxable. So therefore, some of the benefit will also affect your income tax due, not only to the federal, but also to the provincial and territorial government. So you received some, not everybody, but a lot of people receive those emergency recovery benefit, but they also have to pay taxes if their income were high enough. So the emergency and the recovery benefit affecting income taxes. And therefore, they also impact the after-tax income. So it fits into this classification of the different income measures. So this gives you an idea and from which income component that those benefits affect Canadians' income and well-being. So this is whatever I already mentioned, that we have to keep in mind that the emergency, the 5 emergency and recovery benefit, they are taxable income, so they are going to enter into income tax. The reason I wanted to emphasize this point is that if you want to analyze after tax income, you have to make sure that those emergency and recovery benefits, they are taxable. You want to take that into consideration as well. Okay, and that is about all the recovery and the top up benefit. And today, when we talk about the measurement, the well-being, we are going to focus on the following aggregate income measures, including the mean. Sometimes I use the median after-tax income, even total income, the low income rate, the poverty rate, the inequality index, and the core housing need index. So these are the indicators we are going to focus on today. Now, what is the basic idea when we try to assess the impact of the pandemic relief benefit? Uh, we can think about one person whose name is Bob. Let's say he received the emergency recovery benefit in the year 2020, and therefore and his total income in that year was like Y Bob 2020, and that was his actual or factual income. That's the actual amount he actually received, including the benefit, the emergency recovery benefit, and other income component. But if we want to look at the impact of the pandemic relief benefit, the question, the research question we want to ask is, what if he did not receive those benefits? What would be his total income if he had not received those pandemic or emergency recovery benefit? Let's say that is W Bob 2020, and that income is the hypothetical one, right? Because we were asking what would be his total income if he did not receive those benefits. But the fact is that he did receive the benefit. So we were trying to answer a counterfactual question, a hypothetical question, you know. But that money, that W Bob, is not actually observable. If it were observable, it would be easy. The impact of the emergency and recovery benefit is simply the difference between the actual amount he received and the hypothetical or counterfactual amount he received. But so the question is that how do we, find a replacement, this counterfactual income, which we really don't know, but we try to find an approximate or a replacement to that counterfactual income. If we can get a good approximate of that counterfactual income, then we would be able to talk about the impact of this emergency and recovery benefit. So this is the essential idea of assessing any program, actually, not only for the emergency recovery benefit. If you have a training program, if you have any other program, you can all the government program or program from other institutions, you can always think in this framework. How do you assess the impact? You want to find the actual amount, you want to find the counterfactual amount by some kind of approximation. So, the question can also be alternatively thought as many of, I think everybody knows the song, the theme song from Titanic, right? The Titanic, the person said that, the song that, what if I had never let you go? Would you be the man I used to know? If we could only turn back time, but I guess we'll never know. So this is the what if question, if what if the thing didn't happen, So that is the fundamental issue when we try to look at the impact. It's the what if question that's very important to think about. To do this kind of assessment, there is, of course, the best solution is to do a random experiment. This kind of random experiment sometimes it's feasible, but a lot of time it's not. For example, in this pandemic relief case, of course you cannot do this random experiment because people's life are suffering. People were impacted by this COVID-19 and they were not able to work, or they cannot, if they wanted, they couldn't work because they got sick. So you cannot do this kind of experiment. However, many of you might know that in Ontario, we got a basic income experiment, right? And that is exactly one example of random experiment in which you randomly choose two groups of people. One group of people, you give them basic income, the other group you don't. So you have, two random comparable groups. And then, let's keep that for a year or two. And then we evaluate, we compare the result of the two groups. Then the difference would be attributed to the impact of a given program. That's the same thing when we get this like a COVID vaccine, right? When you get a new vaccine, you want to do some safety test, you want to do some efficiency test. Then to do the efficiency test, you choose randomly two groups of people. And one group of the people you give them without them knowing, you give them the vaccine. The other group you give them placebo, right? And fake medicine. So now you let them out to the neighborhood, to the community, and then a few months later, you ask them whether they got infected or not. Then you compare the result of these two groups. Then the difference will be attributed to the effect of the vaccine. So that's the basic idea of random experiment. However, as I mentioned that in our case, in this pandemic relief benefit case, we cannot do this random experiment. And we cannot turn time back either. Right? So we have to find something, some replacement, some approximation to help us to understand the impact of the benefit. So there are different methods. I list here a few relatively straightforward methods to help us to understand the impact of this pandemic relief benefit. The simplest one is the observational or decomposition analysis. That's relatively simple, straightforward. People use that very often. Of course, you can also follow the accountant. You can perform like an accountant would do. You try to take things away, take the benefit away, and then you do the comparison. And also, nowadays we have computer to help us. We have ChatGPT. It's very advanced. We have AI, so we could, use the computer power to help us do a simulation analysis. And more traditionally, more technically, there are also the econometric methods to analyze the impact of these benefit, pandemic relief benefit. Those methods, they are called non-experimental methods. They are not probably not as effective as the random experiment, but what can you do? We cannot do that random experiment. So the observational or decomposition analysis essentially is to compare things over time. For example, we can compare the income, the actual income in 2020 versus the actual income of 2019 of the same person. Or alternatively, you can compare the actual income of a person in 2020 versus the income in like 2015. Or you can also look at, how things changed over time. Like you can look at how much your income increased between 2015 and 2020 versus how much your income increased between 2010 and 2015. So you can compare all these things directly. That's the observational analysis. Of course, when we talk about the impact, like I mentioned, there are so many different components in the income, right? You have market income, you have transfers, you have income taxes. So if you want to analyze the contribution of each component, the pandemic relief benefit included as one part of the government transfer. Remember, it belongs to other government transfer, right? You can put your income like in the equation at the bottom of the slide. you have different component of income. They add up to the after-tax income. Then you analyze the change of each component. And then you divide, divide the right hand side, each component by the left hand side. Then you get the share, of contribution of each income component to the after-tax income change. So this is called kind of a decomposition. You attribute to the change of income into its different part. So that's the typical decomposition analysis. Now, this is an example in our income daily. We look at the impact of the emergency recovery benefit and how it affect people's earning in 2020. This chart shows that first, if you look at the blue rectangle, it says that in 2020 we have 942 and 825 people, fewer people had zero earnings in 2020. In other words, we had fewer people without income in 2020 relative to 2019. So the pandemic benefit essentially left many people who would have earned zero income, but now they earn more than zero. And then, if you look at the first rectangle inside the box, you see that 835 fewer Canadians with the low earning between $1 and 15,000. So you had fewer Canadians earned less income. Then if you look at the next rectangle, you see that there are more people, 1 million, more than 1.5 million to earn an income at a reasonable amount between 15,000 to 60,000. And then even further down, you see that there are this number of people earned, like more than 250,000 of them earned like 60,000 or more. So in other words, the emergency recovery benefit together with the EI benefit help people to increase their earnings despite of the COVID-19 that affect people's labor market outcome. So we can see this is a kind of we compare the income or the earning in this example in 2020 versus the earning in 2019, and we can see the impact of the pandemic relief benefit. And also in that daily release, we look at the composition of different income component of Canadian families between 2010, 2015, and 2020. So in this table, you can see that between 2015 and 2020, the median total family income increased by 10.1% from 66,000 to 69,500. It's between 69,500 to 76,500 between 2015 and 2020. It's actually, I don't know, my mouse doesn't, actually these two numbers, right? So this median total income increased by 10.1% between 2015 and 2020. In contrast, between 2010 and 2015, it increased from 66,000 to 69,500, and that was only 5.3% increase. So in other words, now with the pandemic benefit in 2020, your total income in the last 5-year period increased much faster than the previous 5-year period. And if you look at the different component, you can see that child benefit in 2015 to 2020 is increased by 42.3%. Say from here, 4,160 to 5,000 880. So that's 43. Oh no, sorry, I went to a wrong row. The child benefit increased from 9,900 to 10,100 between 2015 and 2020. That's 42.3%. Now, if you compare to the previous 5-year period between 2010 and 2015, that was only 10.6%. On the other hand, remember our other government transfers where the emergency benefit and top up belong. That increase between 2015 and 2020, it's 236.7%. While in the previous 5 years, it was a decline of 9.1%. So you can get a very probably a strong sense that those pandemic relief benefit helped Canadians' income increased faster between 2015 and 2020 versus the previous 5-year period. So that's again an observational analysis. Now, the observational analysis can also be doing like look at the share of the income component, how that share changed between 2015 and 2020, and without saying much, if you look at the bottom row of that table, then you see that the government transfers, the share in 2015, it only accounted for 2.1%. By 2020, it accounted for 7.5%. So the share increased a lot. It plays a more important role, more prominent role in individuals' income because of this pandemic relief benefit. And also, of course, you can do the decomposition analysis, look at the aggregate, and then all the different income components, how that changes. Remember I put the formula over there, so you can do not only market or tax only, you can do the different income component, and then you can see that that aggregate after tax income between 2020 and 2015 and 2020 increased by $152 billion, right? By the way, those dollars, they are all in 2000 constant dollars. So you see that for this total amount of change, 28.9% can be attributed to the employment income, 28.9%. On the other hand, if you look at the other government transfers, 59.0% can be attributed to the emergency recovery benefit and the top-up benefit. So again, you see that to what extent those different income component affect the after-tax income, how that changes. So we can look at the contribution to the total change by each income component. Of course, you can go for the details, because we have other government transfer that can be further decomposed, right? So you can do things in this way by looking at the change of each component and how each component affect the total change. Now, so that was basically the simplest way to look at the impact of the benefit or any program. Of course, you can also perform something like the accountant would do. Based under this accountant approach, or even under the observational or decompositional analysis, we always assume people don't change their behavior. In other words, people just do whatever they did. They won't change the behavior, even though you give them some benefit. They still do what they did. So there was no reflection or response to the benefit. So this is basically an assumption you have to make in order to do this type of analysis. So here, if people don't change their behavior, we just by an accountant method, you just take away the benefit they received, including the tax they paid, of course, because as I mentioned, the emergency recovery benefit are taxable. So you calculate their, the hypothetical, we call it, before we call it hypothetical, but now we use the income, actual income, take away the benefit and the tax paid, and then we assume that is indeed the counterfactual or the hypothetical income of this Bob person. So after we take this benefit away, we recalculate everything, all the indicators we mentioned, right? And then we will say, we'll compare, the recalculated indicators with the indicators we calculate without taking the benefit away. So the actual indicator values versus the indicator values where you take the benefit away. So that's essentially the method by a component an accountant. So use that accountant, use that method, we could assess the impact of the pandemic relief benefit for this median after tax income. This is the table from one of our publication, the census in brief, that if you look at the total, the median after tax income with the benefit is 32,800. If we take the benefit away and put the income tax they paid back, and that is the amount they would have received if they don't change their behavior. So then you look at the there is the difference, and this difference, how much in the total original median income, the difference, the percentage difference is actually the impact can be thought as the impact of the pandemic relief benefit. And in our example, we can say that of this $32,800 after tax income a Canadian received in 2020, 13.4% was contributed by the pandemic relief benefit. So that is the interpretation of the result under this accountant's methods to assess the impact. And of course, you can do that not only for everybody, for all the benefited recipient, but you can analyze the different group of the recipient. For example, the very younger one in 2021, 15 to 19 years old, the this amount of after-tax income, 42.5% could be attributed to the pandemic relief benefit. Likewise, for people with very low income, the bottom decile, the bottom 10% of Canadians who receive the lowest income, the median after-tax income was 8,000, and among that 8,000, more than half came from the pandemic and the top-up benefit. So that is the way we look at the impact of the benefit according to this method. Likewise, you can use the same method to calculate the low income rate for a group of individuals, for Canada, for different province, for your city, your community, your municipality, you name it. So with the benefit, with the pandemic relief benefit, those were the low income rate, the actual low income rate in Canada and the different province in 2020. Then if we take away those benefits, those would have been the low income rate in those different jurisdictions. As you can see that, like in Canada, with the benefit, the actual low income rate was 9.3% in 2020. If we took away the other benefit, the low income rate in 2020 would be 12.8%. So in other words, the COVID benefit help reduce low income rate substantially. In some, at least in some province, the impact is very, very strong. So it's essentially a recalculation, taking away the pandemic relief benefit. And similarly, you can do the calculation of the inequality indicator. For example, here I did the Gini index. The Gini index is the number between 0 and 1. The higher it is, the more unequal of the income distribution. Here is the Gini index of household after-tax income for Canada and different province. So again, the actual Gini index in 2020 for Canada is 0.281. If that's the actual one where we keep the COVID benefit, but if we put the COVID, if we take away the COVID benefit, then the Gini index would be 0.308%. So the Gini index would be much higher if we take away the COVID benefit. The same thing can be said for the provinces. So this is the Gini index, and of course you can calculate the other indicator, the core housing need index. So without the benefit or not, so you do the recalculation, you do calculate the index, then you can compare the impact of the benefit. And that is the counting method. Now we could also use the computer to do the work. Well, in the previous method we have to do a lot of work, not by our hand, but we have to write the programs and let the computer do the calculation. But here there's a very similar way, but it is called a social policy simulation database and model. I'm sure many of you heard this program. And that was a program developed by my colleagues in another division at Statistics Canada. So it essentially, calculate the impact of tax and the benefit and transfers, right? So it is, you can imagine that in the very middle you have a simulator. You can think of that as the wonk where you cook things out, right? You have other things. On the left hand side you have the ingredients. The database was original data from other years. And then you have a guy over there change the parameters of the transfer system. For example, in our case, this person's responsibility is just take away all these pandemic and top up benefit, and then we put all these ingredients into the cooking pot, and then it cooks out the data without the benefit, right? Without this pandemic relief benefit. And then you got the new data, like we did in the accounting approach. You can do a calculation with the simulated data and compare the result, the indicators based on the simulated data versus those indicators based on the actual data. So then we can do this calculation. For example, here, this is the median household after tax income. The blue bar represents the actual median household after tax income with the COVID benefit. The brown bar, it's lower than everywhere in different province, by the lower than the blue bar. That's the median household after tax income without the pandemic relief benefit. So this will give you a clear percentage of the impact of the COVID benefit in to what extent it help the median household after tax income to increase in 2020 with the COVID benefit. Similarly, you can calculate the low income rate like before, but now based on simulated data and the percentage of person in poverty that according to the market basket measure. And then you can do, of course, do the core housing need percentage calculation as well. And from all these different Gini index as well, from all these different indicators, you can see that consistently the COVID benefit help improve the well-being of Canadians in according to the different indicators. Now, so like I said, the simulation method and the accounting method are very similar. It's just that the results are also similar too. It's just that the simulation method is a little bit more flexible. It could have a larger sample size. For example, because you do simulation, you can tell a computer generate like 5,000 observations for me. You can do that. But with the accounting method, you do whatever the data give you, the actual observation. And also, we didn't do the NBM poverty under the accounting method because we didn't know how do we change the disposable income under NBM. And some of you may know this already because under NBM, that poverty measure, we have a specific definition called the disposable income. And in many of the database, we were not able to calculate the disposable income under NBM because of some of the ingredients were not available. But in the simulation database, we have all these parameters, so we can simulate the poverty rate under NBM by taking away the pandemic relief benefit. Now, the next few methods is about some econometric methods. It's a little bit more technical, but I'll just, this is just for demonstration purpose. So it's an illustration. It's something new, and we didn't really go into, being very rigorously to look at all the details. But this this econometric method, it's called the difference in difference. It's for the purpose of illustration only. So the essential idea for this difference in difference estimate is that you pick two groups of individual or families, very similar in 2019, for example. But one group received the COVID benefit, the other group did not receive the COVID benefit. So this is the two groups who are very similar in all other aspects except one group received the benefit. The other group did not receive the benefit. Then you look at their income in 2019 and 2020, and for the group who did not receive the benefit, you know that that was the actual amount without the COVID benefit. In our example, that's the blue line that give you the income, family after-tax income in 2019 and 2020. And then there is the orange line. That is the group of families who did receive the COVID benefit. So then there is a dashed line very close to the blue line. That's the counterfactual income. How did we get that counterfactual income? We first look at the group that did not receive the benefit, how much their income increased in terms of the percentage. In our example, we look at this change of income, which is 4.5%. So the average after-tax income for families that did not receive the benefit, so non-recipient, their income increased by 4.5%. We use that percentage change, we apply that percentage change in the group of families who did receive benefit to get the counterfactual income. So you raise their actual income in 2019 by 4.5% to get 88,770. Then that is the replacement of the so-called counterfactual income. Then the difference between the actual income this family received, the benefit, versus their counterfactual income. That difference can be attributed to the impact of the COVID benefit. So that's the simple idea. You got two groups, one group will receive it, the other group did not receive. For the group who did not receive the benefit, you calculate a counterfactual income in 2020 according to the growth rate of the income of the other family group who did not receive the benefit. So that's the idea of this so-called difference in difference method. Then in this method, you look at the impact and by comparing the actual income of the recipient versus their counterfactual income. And then using that method, we can do a calculation for different province, different CMAs, or even municipalities. If your sample size is big enough, then we can look at the actual income, the counterfactual income. Then we could look at the impact in terms of the dollar amount, as well as the percentage term. In terms of the percentage, by to what extent the pandemic relief benefit raise the family after tax income. So the simple idea you can apply to different locations. And there is finally a so-called matching method, propensity score matching. I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about this method because it sounds like quite academic. But the idea actually is quite simple. That in the sense that we remember Bob, right? Bob who received the ZRB in 2020, and we didn't know his counterfactual income. The W Bob we didn't know. So we said that the solution was to find an approximate to replace that counterfactual income before, right? So the matching method is to find one or more Toms who is very similar to Bob, like a twin probably, or a sibling, a brother who did not receive the benefit. Then we use Tom's income, actual income, because Tom did not receive the benefit, right? We use his actual income to approximate Bob's counterfactual income. In this way, we got an approximate or a replacement. Then we use that difference between Tom's income and Bob's actual income. We use that as the impact of the benefit because our Tom did not receive the benefit. Our Bob did receive the benefit, and our Tom and Bob are very similar to each other. Let's say they are twins. So that gives you the idea about the matching methods, which I don't want to go to much detail. So there is a lot of assumptions one have to make, and then with those assumptions, you can calculate, you can do analysis further, like run a regression, for example, and then you can evaluate the impact. So I did some of the calculations. I look at the median after-tax income, low income rate, poverty rate, and the housing need. So I did the calculation, and then I find to what extent those pandemic the emergency recovery benefit affect people's well-being. So this is it's a simple idea, but the actual process of doing this is relatively involved and it's quite technical. And again, to make sure that I don't claim this is a very fun research result. It's again for an illustration that shows you guys that methods like this could be used to help us understand the impact of the pandemic relief benefit. So those are all the different methods. I hope I did well with my time. I take the next 5-8 minutes to finish up, but the rest will be straightforward. I mainly will introduce you. Many of you may already know, but nevertheless, just in case somebody don't know yet, I'll introduce some of the data I thought would be useful for you guys. First, we have those already available or soon to be available data at StatsCan. You all know that we have census 2021 data, and it also has 2019 individual income in it. So this is already disseminated. You can request for the product. You can apply to use the data to do your own calculation. That's a census. That's a StatsCan flagship product. Another large data file that will probably help for communities for smaller areas is the T1 family file. The preliminary file for 2021 has already been released. The final file will be released early in the summer, I suppose. So that is available. The sample size is very big because essentially it's everybody who filed their income tax returns. And then we have just released last week the Canadian Income Survey. That's where we calculate, we publish our official poverty indicators, low income indicators, and the inequality indicators, even the core housing needs indicators. So it's a survey. The sample size is not very big, but it gives you a good idea, the official estimate for many of the well-being indicators. And one thing you may not know yet, because that's still under construction from my team, and we are actually constructing, with the help from Employment and Development Canada, EMDC. I don't remember their exact name because they change name all the time. It's so-called Emergency Recovery Benefit Project. This is the project that we get all the emergency recovery benefit. We assemble them together. Then we link those data with the T1 family file. We can also link with the census data. So this will be a very useful data set. I think it will be available later during the early fall, or sometime fall or early winter will be available. So if you are really interested, let us know, and we can probably talk on that. So it is a very rich admin data linked with other with the other surveys at StatsCan. And then we, in recent years, we enriched, we improved some of our existing surveys, like the labor force survey, the Canadian Community Health Survey, General Social Survey, and so on and so forth. We increased the sample size of those surveys in order to facilitate analysis at smaller geographic levels. So we increased the sample size to facilitate that. For some of the surveys, we also add some additional questions, additional content or sub-modules to answer some policy relevant or new policy questions. And finally, we also have, the administrative data linkage environment. We can do a lot of record linkage to address policy concerns in many other areas. And recently, we also, in October 2020, actually, we worked together with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and we established the so-called Municipal Financial and Social Economic Data Dashboard. And there you can find you can find a lot of data from the cities, and then using those data, you can do a comparison between your city and the other city you want to compare with, or your rival cities, to do some comparison of the age of the population, of the crime index, the cost of living or labor market participation, employment, unemployment data, as well as the city's revenue and expenses. And finally, we have these so-called linkable open data environment. This is something quite new. We are working under the open government license, and we work together with our partners. The role of Statistics Canada is that we are trying to help to harmonize or standardize the measures, because open data, from different sources, that different survey or different sources have using different measurement, and the concept may not be comparable. So stats can help to harmonize those different data sources. So created the following databases. Within that framework, you have not only the open data, you also have, you can be part of that. You can contribute to that initiative, contributing data from your community, and of course, in that environment, you also have the tools to do data retrieval, to do deputation, and so on and so forth. However, I would caution you that this new resource is mainly exploratory, so it's not really StatsCan data. They are independent from other product from Statistics Canada. Our role, like I said, is just to try to harmonize the concept to make things more comparable. Now, finally, but this is also quite very important, and I also want to impress my gratitude to my colleagues from regional data center like Joanne and Taila to facilitate this presentation. And you guys may already know, but just in case people don't know, the data service center, we have a data service center in each of the regional office. This data service center offers a range of services could help you. Some of them free, and some of they know where to lead you. If you need some data, they know the data. I'm pretty sure they know the data much better than I do, because I work from one division in the income area. So my colleagues in those data service centers, they have very good knowledge. They are excellent in communicating. They are excellent to lead you to where you can find the help you need. So their contact are on the slide. This slide it will be available to you guys. So you have all the contact available for you to if you need their help on any data at StatsCan. So to summarize the whole presentation, I think we did well in terms of the time wise. So we have a large amount of spending for helping people to relieve the pandemic impact, and there is the significant impact on the income indicator to many Canadians, like more than two-thirds of them receive the benefit, and in order to understand the impact, there's no easy way to quantify those impact, but we do have those different methods, approximation methods to help you to understand better the impact. And you can follow some of the fairly simple procedures like the decomposition analysis, the simulation analysis, or if you want to try the more technical methods, probably I will suggest you to contact your colleagues from university academic areas who are very good at helping you to use this more advanced method to evaluate the impact. And finally, like I just mentioned, we have a lot of data available. We have our services. You are more than welcome to contact our data service center to look for to find the help you would need. And I think that's it of my presentation. Thank you so much. We can talk about questions. I'll try my best to respond to your questions. If I cannot, well, you can ask my colleagues at the data service center, or you can send an email to us and visit our website and post your questions. We will do our best to help you guys. All right.
Thank you very much, Julien. That was very thorough and covered a lot of interesting topics. I haven't seen any questions come up in the chat. My login has changed, so Kayla, I don't know if you are seeing any questions.
Nope, there have been no questions in the chat thus far.
Okay. I guess I would jump in. Just it's I don't know if it's a question that you can answer. It's so yes, the slides will be available on the website. A lot of your presentation spoke to the need to reconsider these indicators. That they showed the effect of the pandemic, income benefits, and I guess the next question is, what would our members do then? And in our discussions leading up to this webinar, you had indicated that's not something that you can necessarily answer so well, but it's worth putting there what we had discussed. Considered the idea of looking at alternative income years and trying to tie that to census data. Use the T1 family file for 2021 data to see if that can provide some insight into some of these indicators without the pandemic income reliefs. Again, I don't know if you have any summary comments on that. I know this is not exactly the analysis that you were doing, but
Thank you, Mike. The like I said, probably we can think about this in two different ways. One is that, of course, we understand now with this benefit, with this pandemic benefit, people's income changed, and in reality, people's behavior might also have changed. Of course, because when we do the analysis, the simple analysis, we assume people's behavior don't change. Now, ideally, in other words, the indicator we saw based on the actual data in 2020, they are not actually reflecting a normal economy, how the normal economy would perform, of course, because we have those additional cash injected into our system. So true, they are the real data. They are the real, numbers, but they do not necessarily reflect the normal result. So one way, of course, like Mike, you mentioned, we can, of course, using the data from different years so that we are free from the impact of the pandemic relief benefit, as well as the impact of the pandemic per se, like how they affect our, days of working or the unemployment rate. So we can use data from another years, and like I said, we have in the census we have 2019 data available, only at the individual level though. So you could look at the individual income outcomes in 2019. And of course, like I mentioned, we now have a 2021 preliminary T1 family file available. That is a large sample size. It's facilitated well for many analysis. However, there are limitations, right? The limitation of the 2021 T1 family file is that it does not have a lot of demographic characteristics. It only has a lot of income measures, different components of income, but we don't have a lot of individual characteristics. That's something we have to keep in mind. On the other hand, the 2019 income data, it's available in the census, but again, it has only individual level data. There's no family level data available for 2019. So our original plan was to also get the 2021 income for associated with the census. Unfortunately, we don't have the resource to do that anymore. I don't see that could be realized. We would have to use alternative data source. But that aside, 2020, like when we look at our hockey players, they often say it is what it is, right? uh, pandemic happened, right? People's labor market was affected. Many people got sick, and some of them even lost their loved ones, and government spent the money. So that was the reality. This what we want to do is that it didn't reflect the normal year, but it does reflect all the indicators on 2020 on the actual data. They all reflect the reality in 2020. So all my presentation, it means that we try under certain assumptions to assess the impact of the pandemic. So we can take away that pandemic. There is a caveat for doing that because we assume people don't change their behavior. But after taking away the benefit, we get an estimate. That is your estimate without the pandemic benefit. So that is still comparable between different cities, between different group of individuals, because that was what actually happened. It is what it is, like our hockey player would say. I
Okay,
hope that reply your question well, Michael.
any other questions? Tahila, I see you have your hand up. Was there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my hand up because we have, I believe at this point, 5 questions in the chat. Julien, can you see the chat box, or do you want me to read them to you?
Okay, I'll try to see the chat box.
Yep. If you go back up to
Okay.
238, Mike has the first question.
Yeah, a recent economic report entitled Real Production and Real Income Growth Over the COVID-19 Pandemic showed that GNI growth had exceeded GDP for the period 2019 to 2022. Would this have affected the disposable income at the family level during the pandemic period and thus reduce poverty in a way that's different from long-run trends in the 2010s?
In terms of I'm not I don't work in area of the national account, so I would have little to say about the GDP or the GNI, but I could say something about the poverty thing because that's where I work with, and yes. We can see that the poverty rate, low income rate, they all reduced substantially in 2020. And then if you read our daily release on income, Canadian income survey May 1st, I think, you would remember, or last week probably, you would see that in 2021 the poverty rate increased a little bit more. So in one word, did pandemic relief benefit reduced low poverty rate a lot? Did it change the trend a lot? It might have changed the trend. It might, reduce the poverty rate more than what would have happened without the benefit. So it reduced like to a quite a low level. Without if we did not have that benefit, if there was no pandemic in 2020, our low income rate would still be lower than 2019. That's what we could see. And in 2021, it is slightly higher than 2020, but still much lower than 2019. However, I want to caution you, Michael, that some of the pandemic benefit continued in 2021. So even you want to rely on 2021 data, you still cannot totally get rid of the impact of the pandemic relief benefit. I guess right now, you either go back to 2019 or you have to live with it for 2021. I probably think that in 2022 that there will be no more pandemic relief benefit. But who knows? My God, in a general equilibrium framework, the money the government spent in 2019, 2020, and 2021 could continue to have an effect for 2022 and beyond, because people's behavior do change. We saw that there is an increase in retirement in recent months, but is that because of the pandemic or because of the COVID or because of this extra income they received? We don't know. So we have to face the reality that when we try to identify the impact of pandemic, then we have to work with the actual data and just to try to our best to isolate the impact of it. And that's probably the best we could do.
Okay, I'm going to skip to a question from this Jazz Demon. Jazz, wonder if you have any information on this. Out of 68% of Canadians that received the benefit, what proportion of them applied for the benefit, and what proportion received the benefit somewhat, quotes, automatically, as for example, as tax benefits?
That I don't have a lot of information on that, but like I said, we are developing that data. To be honest, I think many of them, some of them would automatically receive it, like the top ups. It's available for everybody who are qualified for the GST HST credit for the and also available to everybody who received GIS and who received the child benefit with a certain income income limit. No, so it's automatic for many of these the top up benefit for sure. Now for the emergency recovery benefit that you have to apply, and I don't think you will automatically get those emergency recovery benefit if you don't apply for them. That's my impression. I could be wrong, but that's what my understanding.
Question from Scott Leon, Toronto Housing. Is there any analysis or data showing how much poverty, according to the market basket measure or core housing need, have bounced back since the pandemic since the pandemic benefits have lapsed?
The core housing need, I don't know the official indicator on the core housing need will come out probably in the summer, but I can tell you the poverty rate bouncing back slightly. Again, I don't remember exactly by what percentage point it bounced back, but if you look at our Canadian income release the other day, May 1st, you would see that it was higher than 2020, but still lower than 2019 in terms of the poverty rate.
Thanks. Are there any examples you can point to of responses or actions to account for what appears to be an outlier year and the potential impact on programs designed to address measures such as poverty and housing need?
That I'm sorry, I'm afraid I cannot answer on that. It's a little bit technical on that. It's probably out of my scope, and that's not my area about the program design on that. I'm sorry if I don't think I can answer that question. You may want to talk to our colleague like Taylor or anybody from your regional office.
Okay. This question from Toronto. Do you have a list of all the variables that were controlled for in the effect calculations in your last table?
The last table, yeah, I do have, but that's based on the longitude. No, the Canadian Income Survey. I did have these control variables. Family characteristics, age of the major income earner or the family height, number of children available, number of children in the family, and a bunch of other variables like education probably. But I have that in my program. But I want to caution you that final example was for illustration purpose. It's not necessarily a very rigorous estimate. If you want to know more about this propensity score matching methods, you probably want to ask an expert on that and to do a better or appropriate application of the statistical matching method. Of course, we could send me an email. I can provide you the list of variables I use, but I don't want to say that this is, a very rigorous result. It's just, like I said, for illustration purpose is to show that this method could be used in this circumstance.
So there's a question just asking if there's similar analysis to what you've done here for the 2021 year, that there's been analysis on the impacts of the pandemic benefits for 2020. Is there any thoughts of doing a similar analysis for 2021?
No, I don't think it's done yet. Even the many of the numbers in this presentation are just, I did it last month, just, as a way for demonstration. So we didn't. That was mostly based on 2020 data. At the time when I was working, 2021 data was not available yet. Even right now, we just last week we got the Canadian income survey available, and the T1 family file was preliminary, so I didn't work on the T1 2020 T1 FF 2021 yet. So I'm not aware at least any analysis available on 2021 data yet.
Okay. Got a question from Beth Wilson. Is there any data, or will there be data on people who've been told by the Canada Revenue Agency that they need to repay the benefit? And when do you get that sort of information?
Not yet. Like I said, we are working on a data project on the emergency recovery benefit. And we are trying to, we receive all the data from ESDC and CRA. We are trying to, to synthesize them, integrate them, and link with them with other data sources. It could be available sometime in the fall, I think, or if not earlier. So that question could be used as a custom question. By the time we got the data, we can probably answer that question as a custom run.
And a second question asking about how the pandemic benefits impacted specific groups such as racialized communities, newcomers, lone mother families, different household types. So I guess that's asking to what extent the census data can be disaggregated according to impact of the pandemic benefits.
The answer is yes, but with a limitation. If you use the census data, yes, you can do that at the country level, even at the provincial level for the large CMAs. But for the CAs and the smaller communities, I'm not sure the sample size is good enough for all the different group you mentioned, like the newcomers. For example, in one relatively remote CAs, we may not have a lot of newcomers. So yes, they can all be done using census data, except that we have to pay attention that we want to make sure our sample size is good enough.
Okay. What would be the ETA, or like the estimated time of arrival for your joint project on the pandemic effects with Employment and Social Development Canada? And will there be official reports or possibly adjusted data tables as a result?
I'm not sure about the plan yet. We are the first step at the beginning. At the first step, we are going to produce that data set. We're going to have that data set, early. My estimate is that in early fall, and that could be we could make it available in the research data center. If I'm not sure if you guys are working, can get the data in the research data center, and then you can look at the data by yourself. We are preparing actually the linkage and available linkage other data sources, as well as some user guide and the code book and so on and so forth. So we are quite tight in terms of our our hands available. We have to, we engage with other clients to do a few very urgent project at this moment. So yeah, the data is still under development. My estimation would be sometime in the early fall to be available in the research data center. And then we can keep in touch on that. And once we are, once it available, we'll let everybody know that this data becomes available. And if you want to, some help from us, that's also okay. You can ask for the help through our client service or from the regional data service center.
Okay. Sorry, I think there's a question here.
Sure. Can I ask?
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering, is there any jurisdiction that has used any of the methods to kind of reassess their poverty level? And if so, which method they have used among the ones you listed or showed?
Sorry, were you able to hear the question?
Not very clearly. So yeah, could you repeat it or put it here so I can see it, because the sound is not very strong.
Understood. If there are jurisdictions that have used any of the methods that you presented to reassess their poverty levels, essentially.
I suppose the decomposition and the accountant methods, they are fairly simple to implement, and you can do that at the CMA or municipal level if you have enough data source. That has no problem. You can also look at our product like this, the census in brief or our daily income release. The methods are already there, so you can do that, no problem.
Okay, but it doesn't sound like it's been done already by any.
No, it's to a certain degree. You can look at our census income tables for 2021 census. Some of them might already be in the data center. It's just that I'm not in that area. I don't work in that area, but I know there are a bunch of income tables, particularly on the pandemic relief benefit, their impact. If you look at those, try to search on our website under census, and then under census there is the income data tables, and then we have those nearly, I think, if not 100, but we have probably 70, 60 data tables for Canada level, provincial, CMAs, CAs, the municipalities, even the CSD municipalities. So you could look at our income data tables from the census and find some of the analysis were already there. You don't have really do it, but if that serve your purpose well.
Okay. Some of that it sounds like some of that decomposition has been done in those tables. We just have another question here from Martin. Yeah.
So if you hear from here, I'm just wondering if that decomposition was also done by an IX code as well for income by industry.
Has any of that decomposition been done by income by industry?
If you think about when we talk about these things, we'll talk about individuals and their families. So if you are talking about individual working in different industries, that's probably okay. But we don't really decompose things across industries, because the pandemic benefit today we're talking about all benefit to individuals and families. There's no, of course, there is data, the emergency benefit to the subsidy to businesses, but that's not my area. You can ask my colleague in the data service center to talk about those, government subsidy to businesses, like a wage subsidy, rent subsidy. I know that there is this data available at StatsCan. You just have to find information from a different channel, not from my part, because I don't work in that area. Of course, if you cannot find anybody, send me an email. I'll try to send the email to my colleague who could answer you that question.
I had a follow-up question, something that you said before, because in our discussions before this webinar, we had talked about the possibility of linking 2021 data from Canada Revenue Agency to the census, and it hadn't been decided yet whether that was going to happen, whether StatsCan would be publishing some tables with 2021 income data with some of the 2021 census data, but you said something in the webinar that indicated that wouldn't be happening. Did I hear that correctly?
I think so. You heard it correctly. Our original plan was we try to link 2021 data, but given a lot of restrictions, other changing circumstances, I don't expect to produce the 2021 data to be linked with the census. Of course, the thing is that you can probably, down the road, when I say that we don't do that, for the whole country or for, whole data site, you still could do customer services. You can look for, like in the specific city, CMA, CAs, or CLDs. Probably, we have given the, record link, facilities as StatsCan as a customer run. Probably that still could be done, but I don't think that will be, available something similar to the 2021 census data. No, I don't expect that I don't expect that will be a reality.
Yeah, I recall that Joanne, who had helped to coordinate this, had said that it was a bit of an all or nothing. It was either the link was going to be made. It'd be something that'd be difficult to do on a cost recovery basis, with a custom request.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if that changes, we'd certainly, we'll be in touch with.
Unfortunately, yeah, we cannot help on that as a free product, given the limited budget. It's a big project.
Yeah, understood. Sorry, I'll just take one last question, and I think we'll probably wrap up because we're a little bit over time. But someone asking, would it be possible to have access to reports based on provincial level data? I'm interested in similar analysis for the province of Manitoba. So I guess you might be referring people again.
Like I said, a lot of data has already been available at the provincial CMA, CA, and CSD level. There are some available data from our website, but we in this exercise, in preparing this presentation, I didn't do it provincially. It's just an example to show the things, what could be done, what could have been done, and what are the assumptions and limitations. So it's not really that we are doing a project for the country or for each province. That is essentially there's this is just the PowerPoint file. We try to provide some basic information, but we didn't have that. If you want, you can look at our website for the income data tables to get some basic information.
Understood. That's great. Oh, sorry. There's just one more question.
To say, what's the future of the Canadian Income Survey, and is there any possibility of getting it to CSD level?
Oh, there's a question just regarding the future of the Canadian Income Survey and the possibility of getting data down to the census subdivision level.
I don't expect that. This is a survey that there are so many questions, and it means to produce the official income indicators at Canada provincial levels and some of the CMAs. But I don't think, given the sample size, we don't expect to produce at the lower geographic level, unless, of course, we have a budget boost to, from top, and then we have more money. Then we can do a large scale survey. Then that will make things feasible. But overall, I don't expect that to happen.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Julien. This has been excellent, very informative. It's really appreciated the time that you put into this, and even before the webinar, you put quite a lot of work into this, and it's really greatly appreciated. So thank you. I just want to make a quick plug for a webinar panel discussion that we will be having on Friday, which will be another hybrid event. I believe it is at around 10:30, 10:40 Eastern time on web scraping. At 10:40. I do not have the exact title, but it coming up in just 2 days. So thanks to everyone who participated, and we'll stick around to see if there are any lingerers with additional questions, but otherwise we'll see you at our next event.
Thank you all. It's really my pleasure to be with you guys. And if you need help, let's keep in touch. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julien.
Thank you.
And thanks everyone